Hi guys, welcome to my channel and another video for the Animal Artists Collective. This is the last one for 2019 and the theme for this round is reptiles. So for my painting I chose the colourful Panther Chameleon. The Animal Artists Collective, for those of you who haven't heard of it before, is a group of artists here on YouTube that was founded to provide a platform for emerging artists, promote positive messages for animal welfare and conservation, and connect artists to their communities. The original artwork produced for the collective is always made available for sale, and at least 50% of the proceeds are donated to a non-profit animal conservation organisation. I'll put a link in the description box below this video to all those taking part this round, so please do go and check out their videos and give them your support. Today, as well as our regular members, we also have Katy Vaughan and Kimberly Crick joining us again as guest artists, so welcome back ladies, and I hope you had fun. If you are interested in taking part in the Animal Artists Collective, then artists in the community are extremely welcome to participate unofficially by either creating their own videos and or artwork under the theme for the month, and by posting it on social media. And I'll put all the links for that down below, as well as how you can vote on future themes via the Facebook group. So on screen you'll see the painting process of my chosen reptile, and I'll talk more about that later on in the video, as it was an interesting and challenging one to get my head around. First though, let's dive into the scaly world of the reptile. Reptiles likely originated more than 312 million years ago, and today animals in this class range in size from tiny geckos to huge saltwater crocodiles that measure more than 19 feet in length. There are believed to be about 10,700 species alive today according to the Reptiles database, which makes them one of the most diverse type of vertebrates in the world. There are four main groups of reptile that this vast number of species fit into, namely Crocodilia, which unsurprisingly includes crocodiles and alligators, Sphenodontia, which is the Tortara, a species native to New Zealand with its own distinct lineage, Testudines, which are primarily turtles and tortoises, and lastly the Squamata, which includes terrestrial reptiles like snakes and lizards. Chameleons belong to the lizard family, and by current classification there are more than 160 different species of chameleon in the world. Chameleons, like all reptiles, are tetrapod vertebrates, which have a protective scaly skin and are distinguished from mammals and birds by being ectothermic or cold-blooded. This means they rely on external weather conditions to power their internal physiology. But whilst they obviously share characteristics with other reptiles, chameleons have a whole set of other specialities that I want to share with you that make them the most specialised members of the reptile world. The Panther Chameleon, or Furcifer pedalis, is a species of chameleon found in the eastern and northern parts of Madagascar, measuring an average of about 17 centimetres long for the males and half the size for the females. Its name is derived from the Latin furci, meaning forked, and refers to the animal's feet, and pedalis, meaning leopard, referring to its markings. It was these beautiful markings that attracted me to paint this particular species of chameleon in the first place, and I was also extremely curious to find out more about how and why they change colour. Contrary to popular belief though, and one I shared before doing a bit of research, is that chameleons of any kind cannot change colour to blend in with any colour environment. All chameleons have a natural colour range which they are born with and is dictated by their species. This red, green and orange one I'm painting, for example, is likely from one of three locales or regions across eastern or northern Madagascar. Now if you're disappointed by this, don't be, because what I also didn't know is that a chameleon's colour can be affected by temperature, light and its mood. So if the colour purple is not within the range of colours to which their particular species can change, then they can never turn purple. But a frightened or angry chameleon can become very bright in colour. This is due to the effects of hormone changes and nerve impulses on the pigments in the skin. These changes cause different colour cells running over 4 layers of skin to expand or shrink, and when the layers blend together, it creates different colours or patterns, which I think you'll have to agree is pretty darn clever. But chameleons don't stop there. Their cone-shaped eyes are the most distinctive among all reptiles. The upper and lower eyelids are joined with only a pinhole large enough for the pupil to see through, and these can be rotated and focused separately to observe two different objects simultaneously. This gives them a 360-degree field of vision, allowing them to see small insects from 5 to 10 meters away. Panther chameleons are omnivores, so lunch out on a diet that consists of plants and animals, and to catch their prey they use their very long tongues. The tongue of a panther chameleon is especially long and can sometimes extend beyond the length of their body. It's quick too, being able to hit prey in 0.003 seconds, so it's a bit like a catapult. And what about those funny looking feet? Well, panther chameleons have quite specialised feet that act like clamps. On each foot, the 5 toes, or fingers, are fused into a group of 2 and a group of 3, allowing the chameleon a tight grip on narrow branches. Each toe is also equipped with a sharp claw to help with climbing. They also have a prehensile or gripping tail, which is super strong and also helps with stability. So chameleons are pretty adept at survival in the wild, their main predators being tree-dwelling snakes and birds, and of course mankind. And although their lifespan in their natural habitats isn't really known, it's thought to be only 2 to 3 years, with males living longer on average than females. Females don't live more than 2 to 3 years after laying eggs, due to the stress it puts on their bodies. They lay between 10 to 40 eggs per clutch, and these typically hatch out in 240 days, with the babies being quite independent from the minute they're born. When carrying eggs, females turn dark brown or black with orange striping to let the males know they aren't interested in mating, but again this colour can vary depending on the region and colour phase. Like most species of chameleons, our panther chameleons are very territorial, and apart from mating sessions they spend much of their time in isolation. If 2 males come into contact though, they will change colour and inflate their bodies to assert dominance, and the loser retreats, turning dark and drab. If neither backs down though, physical combat can take place to resolve the issue. Now at this point I usually like to include some fun facts about the animals I've researched, but I think I've rattled on for long enough. But there's one last chameleon fact for you that I couldn't resist, and that is that chameleons, for all their wonderful features, do not have ears. Instead, they are thought to hear through vibrations. They are also considered to be of least concern in conservation status, and this time round I'll again be supporting the World Wildlife Fund if this painting is sold. So if you'd like to help support the amazing work done by the World Wildlife Fund to help all animals and their environments, and you'd like to own this original watercolour painting, then I'll put links in the description box below to my Etsy shop, Art Hive by Sarah, where it will be up for sale from today, and 50% of the proceeds will be donated to the WWF. So now let's talk a bit about this painting. Like I said at the start of this video, I'd chosen this particular species of chameleon for its bright colours, and I especially wanted to paint the whole of the head and body to capture all those unique and interesting features, like the eye and the coral tail as well. So the size of this piece is 11 by 14 inches, and I'm painting on Archer's 100% cotton cold pressed paper. I'll list all of the supplies I use in the description box if you want to check them out, and the reference photo, by the way, is one from Shutterstock. Because the chameleon is so bright, I decided to go just with a white background, as I think this can be quite eye-catching. For how I was going to depict such a detailed, scaly body though, I did a bit of testing out on some scrap watercolour paper first. With this being quite a large piece, I knew I wouldn't have time to paint individual scales, and I tried out a few methods to see what would look best and be fun to paint too. I tried ink and watercolour together, as well as watercolour with gouache on top, but settled on the idea of using my watercolour first, adding in some fun effects with salt, and then adding detail with ink at the end. I also masked out a few areas around the chameleon's mouth before adding paint too, using a masking pen. I used the wet on wet technique to get a first layer of colour down and help me map out the different areas of the head and body, and worked in sections, using a dotting or tapping motion with my brush to help replicate the scaly appearance of the skin. I then added salt to each part I painted before the paper dried. The idea being to get some interesting shapes and a bit of texture without having to paint individual scales. And whilst I really enjoyed it and the effects it produced, it did lift some of the colour. So I went back over these areas once they were completely dry and added several glazes to build the colour intensity back up to a level I was happy with. I did use the shapes the salt had created though, and even emphasised them by painting around them in some areas, like on the chameleon's face. Then once the masking fluid had been removed, I used my dip pen and some sepia ink to put in the mouth. I used this over my paintbrush as it enabled me to get a really fine line of concentrated ink. Apart from this though, I only ended up using my size 8 silver black velvet brush, which was great for adding both glazes to larger areas as well as the fine details in the piece as well. I also used this brush dry in places to add more texture to the scaly skin on the chameleon's tail, for example. When I'd finished with the sepia ink, I decided to define some more areas with my dip pen, and for this used bright red ink, as you can see me doing here. This really helped to add detail and define a few scales around the mouth area and the ridges along his back and tail. It was tempting at this point to go in with some coloured pencil too, as I usually go for more of a realistic look, but I was quite liking the effects I'd achieved with the watercolours, and how defining a few scales here and there with the ink gave the suggestion of the extent of all those scales without having to paint them all in individually. To finish off this colourful character, I went back to my paintbrush and added in some white gouache around his eye and a few highlighted scales along his back. I mixed the gouache with some of the turquoise that I mixed on my palette too for some lighter but not completely white scales. Lastly, I darkened up the branch the chameleon is gripping onto and focused my attentions on getting those shadow areas dark enough to help create depth. I also worked wet on dry to add in a bit more definition to the longer areas of branch to help them look a bit more interesting. But with that, this piece was done. It was a challenge, but it did encourage me to try new techniques and vary my usual style a bit, which was fun. So I hope you like it. If you do, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and comment below. And if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing and hit the bell icon as well if you'd like to be notified as soon as I upload a new video. Don't forget as well to go and check out all the other artists' videos this round, and I for one am really excited to see how everyone else has got on with their chosen reptile. Thank you so much for watching, have a great weekend, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, bye.